Welcome to this edition of Go Vote Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Rachel Gibson, Director of Education Policy, here with Carol Dennison, Social Policy Co-Director, for today's program on the priority bills for the League of Women Voters of Nebraska. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse political candidates or parties. The League does, however, take positions on issues. Our purpose is to empower voters and defend democracy. Go Vote Omaha primarily focuses on policy issues, and as a result of our discussions, we hope you feel ready to make informed decisions at election time. Today, we are talking about the 107th short session of the Nebraska legislature. We are already on day 28 of 60, and it's been quite a start. Carol Dennison, Social Policy Co-Director, and myself will be giving you the bird's eye view of the session so far and identifying what to watch as we careen toward the end of this active session. Carol, how the heck are you?
Well, I'm just really glad to be here.
Well, me
too. The last time was a little crazy with redistricting.
Yes, much better than, we're in a better place now.
Yeah, we are.
Well, we are just going to jump right in. There were over 1,000 bills either introduced or carried over from last session, so there's no way we can cover all of them. So the League, like many organizations and the senators themselves, have identified a few that they are really focusing on. And so the League has done the same. We have 6 different action areas: natural resources, healthcare, behavioral and mental health, education policy, social policy, and government. And within those, we've been working with our directors to pick out the bills that we think we really need to pay attention to this session. So let's get started. Carol, can you start by telling us a little bit about what is happening in the world of natural resource policy?
Absolutely. We've got two really big things going on. And our natural resource directors, Janelle Stevenson and Megan Lyons, they're just crack at this. They're so good. Anyway, they are interested in supporting as their priority bill, LB 925. Senator Gregert introduced this bill. It is the Resilient Soils and Water Quality priority bill for Senator Gregert as well. It does recognize how vital the quality of our state's water and soils are to our productive agricultural production and the long-term viability of our communities and our own personal health. I think what's great is it deals with great soil management practices. It looks at water flow rates and water storage capacity to help when we get these terrible droughts that we're experiencing. It also addresses intensive reduction of pesticides and herbicides in the soil, which of course are affecting our drinking water as well. This effort is shared through a nonprofit volunteer organization, which is something that is going to help farmers accept the bill easier because they will be teaching each other. So I think that's, it's got a good structure to it.
So it's really engaging Nebraskans from a lot of different areas there.
Right, neighbors and neighbors will help neighbors, basically. So it's a cool thing. So I have a good feeling that this might take home the purse for natural resources.
Well, I hope so. It sounds like a great program that's beneficial on lots of levels and hopefully doesn't have too much pushback.
So. Hope so.
Yeah.
Also, you probably all have heard last year in January, we learned about the environmental disaster in Meade, Nebraska, when Alten, by using pesticide-laden corn seed in its ethanol processing, ended up contaminating soil and water, affecting local and potentially Lincoln water supplies. So it also affected air quality and pollinators. I think they were killing bees. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
right.
Heavens.
Okay, so.
No.
But anyway, we don't even know what all. The worst is that our own Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy granted them permission to use discarded treated seed in the ethanol production process, in addition to or instead of traditional grain. So this is really going to address those really critical issues. In addition to that, there are a number of bills that address Alt-N and those terrible issues that have developed from it. And they're Okay, 634, 694, 695,
Oh,
806,
heavens.
1102, 159,
There are a lot of bills.
276.
Well, at least people
you
are
get
paying
my drift.
attention, you know? At least
Yeah.
it's something that's getting the attention of several senators.
And I think it's such a big issue that if something doesn't get done, we'll be kind of worried about it. So that's pretty important for them.
So, Carol, what do you think? It sounds like for Senator Gregort's bill with the resilient soil, we're looking pretty good.
Yeah.
What do you think about the mead situation, the Alt-N? If you had to give it a card rating, what would you give it?
Yellow.
Yellow? We got a yellow card on this one.
Maybe. I'm keeping my fingers
We're hoping,
crossed.
maybe with that many senators on board, though,
Yeah.
we'll really get to move it forward.
Hopefully.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that update on the natural resources. I'm going to touch on the next area, which is healthcare. There are quite a few bills in this area, and there are a couple main sections that we've really seen them grouped around. Probably the one you've heard the most is there are several abortion access bills up this session. So one of those is referred to as the Heartbeat Bill, and this is from Senator Slama. It's modeled after the bill that's recently happened in Texas. And so it is outlawing abortion based on when the heartbeat's detected, which is usually about 10 weeks. So that's one of the bills. That one actually has 21 co-signers initially, and now it has 23. So I think that one might have some legs under it. There are several others, though. There's also the Nebraska Human Life Protection Act, and that's brought by Senator Albrecht, and that is what is called a trigger bill. So if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, it would automatically take effect and would essentially outlaw abortion for everything but health of the mother. So that's another piece. And then we've got yet another from Senator Geist, the chemical abortion bill. And that puts a lot of restrictions on what's called chemical abortion, which is related to taking a pill as opposed to a surgical issue. And then we have one bill from Senator Hunt that's actually working in the other direction, and is the Quality Practitioners Bill, and that is to widen who is able to medically give abortion care to patients. So February 24th is Abortion Day at the legislature. It's gonna, I think we'll see a lot of civic engagement on lots of different sides of that. So abortion is one issue we're looking at. Some of the other interesting healthcare areas we've got, one is medical marijuana. And if you remember last session, Senator Wishart had brought a medical marijuana bill that was just barely defeated on a filibuster. And this session, it's brought by Senator Groney, who is not typically one that we would be thinking about to bring that type of bill, but he has introduced the Medical Cannabis Act. The downsides that we've seen is that it's very restrictive, and I think it might be in an effort to preempt some of that ballot initiative that'll be happening in the fall.
That's just what I was going to ask. We are going to have some ballot initiatives on that?
There's the signatures are being collected to hopefully have that on the ballot. So.
Two different ones, medical and recreational.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So we'll be talking a lot about marijuana.
Darn.
Two other areas that we're seeing a lot of focus on, which is great, is one is the shortage of care providers, particularly in rural communities. So we're seeing a request for a medical center rural health complex in Kearney. I listened to the hearing on this one this afternoon. Senator Hilkelman brought it. Sounds fantastic. Medical program, MD program, physician assistant program, occupational therapy, all out in Kearney, which would be pretty incredible to see. There's also some bills about incentive pay for nurses. As you know, through the pandemic, they're tired, they need our support, and some different rural incentives. So the last area of health is kind of the business of medicine. And this is very interesting. Lately, we've seen on the floor the debate about Ben Hanson's 906, which is a vaccine exemption. So not allowing employers to require vaccine, and that has faced a lot of back and forth and conversation. And the bill itself has changed quite a bit. There's also been changes in access to CHIP. Senator Day brought a bill to kind of expedite that so kids can get access quicker. CHIP is the children's health care. And then there's also a push towards changing who makes decisions related to healthcare. And one of those is Senator Clements has a city and county health department bill that would require approval before they institute things like mask mandates and things like that. So there's an interesting push and pull about who has the authority there on those health fronts. So lots happening in the health world. we'll just take a slight step to the left and do mental and behavioral health. Carol?
Yes, big year again for this particularly. 976 is the bill that we have endorsed. Senator Wishart's bill called the Adopt the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic Act. This is cool because it's very holistic. It's looking at a very kind of overall picture. It addresses issues like medical comorbidities, stable medication, dispensing and monitoring, safe housing, which I think is a huge new piece of that, which can benefit children and youth, those released from behavioral and criminal justice programs, as well as those who have other health and wellness issues. It's still in committee though, and it's sporting a $15 million price tag, so, you know.
What committee? Because if it's appropriations, you know, they like to keep the purse tight, in a good way, in a good way.
You know what? I don't know what that one is. Sorry about that one. Another one, LB 1066, Senator Stinner has proposed, and this is an appropriations bill, and it's a great support bill for rural mental health. They're looking at establishing mental health beds in rural communities that have nothing now. And from what I was looking at with our prison population, a lot of those folks from out west who have serious mental health problems, get involved with the courts and so on, sometimes end up in our prisons. So this could maybe stop the flow that direction. There is $5 million for the mental health beds, a stimulus of $18 million for education and training of mental health professionals through University of Nebraska, and another $10 million for just general behavioral mental health.
I love seeing that overlay of the different elements. Where can we find the synergy, if you will?
Big cash, though.
Yes.
Big cash.
Yes.
762, sponsored by Senator Dorn, gives an increase in rate for Nebraska behavioral service providers, behavioral health service providers, 10% more, which will cost us about $9 million in general funds and $15.3 in federal funds. But it's very much needed. They're finding that some of these agencies can't even keep going because they are losing money. So I think this will be good.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to cut you off, Carol, because we got a lot of bills to get through here.
Okay.
Any last thoughts on that area?
No, but I sure hope they go through, because if we take care of mental health, we got a lot more going on.
Yes, I completely agree. I guess one quick question for you. Let's talk about Wishart's. What do you think? What do you think on Wishart's?
Well, since we endorsed it, it's gonna go.
We've got a green. We've got a green on that one. I wish that's how that worked.
I wish
we could just endorse something and that made it happen.
They're not paying us any money for our
No,
votes
they're
on
not.
this, are
They're
No.
not.
No.
We're just engaged citizens.
Right. Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to move us forward to our next area, which is education policy, which is my area. So I will have to limit myself because I could talk on this all day. But we're seeing three main areas with policy this session. The first is school funding, and that's where we've spent most of our time lately. One of the big ones that we were looking at was Senator Walz, who is the chair of the Education Committee and has a history as an educator, really did a bang-up job of getting folks together in the same room and coming up with some ideas about how we could change our school funding, because our schools are chronically underfunded here, and the offset of the effects of that result in higher property taxes. And so this is a pressure point for a lot of folks. Senator Walz did an amazing job getting folks together. Unfortunately, that met some contention on the floor, and the speakers moved it to the end of the session. So I don't think we're going to see any big adjustments on TIOSA funding, which is the funding mechanism for schools this time around.
Can I interrupt you on that?
Oh, yes, please.
Haven't we just wished from the beginning that we could just get state aid to schools,
Yes,
which would reduce property taxes?
That is where we stand. Let's get that state aid where it needs to be. I know, because we're 49th in the country of percentage of state aid to schools. So
pathetic.
Oh, we'll just keep working. We'll get there, but not this session. So another school funding issue we've seen that's kind of got an interesting situation. It's called the Opportunity Scholarship Act, and this is something that Senator Lou-Ann Linehan has been working on for years. The bill has come several times. We started out the session debating this on the floor. It did not pass cloture. It did not advance, and this would essentially give tax benefits to folks who donate to scholarship granting institutions that then can use that money to provide students directly to go to a private non-public school. And so there's a lot of different moving pieces there to consider. It didn't pass, it didn't move forward, but interestingly, Senator Brewer has reintroduced the exact same bill, which had a hearing last week. So we'll see if that moves forward.
I've got an idea. Can we call that the boomerang bill?
There's a couple that we need to call the boomerang bill.
Okay.
That's fair. It's like passing it around, like hot potato. So that's one area that we're looking at in is school funding. The other two are teachers. There's been a lot of talk about the really stark teacher employment issue that we're going to have coming shortly, the shortage that's just been blown up even more by COVID. So there's been some interesting bills. Senator Vargas introduced a bill to eliminate the need for the praxis exam, which is an entrance exam. Very interesting testimony about the implications of that. Senator Blood offered something similar that said, hey, can we look at something other than testing for competency? And then there were several bills about student loan repayments for teachers. So there was one by Senator DeBoer, one by Senator Linehan. The Education Committee brought one. I'm really hoping that's where we'll see some action. The last area is probably the one you've heard the most about, is really about curriculum and control. And so there are a couple different ways this is playing out. One of them is how we structure our education system. So Senator Linehan has a bill up that would actually completely eliminate our Board of Education, our State Board of Education, and replace it with a commissioner that reports to the governor. Another bill by Senator Albrecht was brought that would basically reduce the advice that the guidance, the guidelines, the rules that the state board can give to schools. And that's in response to some of if you've heard about the health care or the health guidelines and that type of thing.
Doesn't this take away some local control?
You know, that's our concern too. It does take away that local control piece. It kind of, and there's a lot of schools that look to the state for that guidance, especially because they don't have to use the standards. So it's an interesting piece there. The last two bills I want to mention on that one are both related to what's actually taught in the classroom. And the first is from Senator Sanders, who brought a bill that really is trying to make sure that parents have access to the materials that are available in the classroom. Now, what's interesting about this is updating an older statute that needs to be updated, but it also is adding a punitive piece that if they don't abide or they don't fall in line with, the school loses their state funding. So it's kind of a big stick for issues that need to be updated, but maybe not with that much ferocity. So that's one. The other one is Ben Hanson's 1077, which some are referring to as the CRT bill. That's an interesting one. You should read that one in its entirety. It's trying to get around what you can and can't teach about in the classroom, specifically related to race and gender and equity. But I would encourage you to go read that one because it's interesting. So I could talk for days about education, but I'm not going to. So I will turn this over to Carol to talk about social policy.
And this is my big baby, corrections right now. We, last year, of course, worked very hard to kind of table the prison funding, and Senator Stinner, in all his wisdom, put back some money for that, but said we're just going to wait to see what that criminal justice reinvestment work group comes up with, and we are now looking at that. So these two pieces go hand in hand. We're hoping to still table that money for the prison until we get some social justice reforms online. So Stop the Prison, we wrote for that, Agency 46 for appropriations for the prison. And then we are supporting LB 920, which is basically a smart justice bill from Senator Lathrop. And he basically, is still working it in committee. We hope for it to come out of committee It is a huge 58-page bill
I was going to say that one had a lot of stuff in it, didn't it?
with 21 items
Oh, heavens.
involved. And basically, the big ones are streamline the parole process. We know that the parole process is gummed up, and we need to get rolling. And it's during COVID, of course, things got reduced. With the overcrowding in the prisons and the fewer staff, they have less time to get those people out to programming, stalls them all up. I mean, it's just kind of a domino effect. We're looking at the support for transitional housing and flexible treatment programs for parolees. We want to improve the statewide behavioral mental health. In fact, this bill offers something for tuition assistance for those professionals to get into the practice and to work in the system, and after so long they get everything reimbursed, which is pretty cool. Problem-solving courts are huge. Now, we have quite a few in Douglas County, but out west they have very little resources for that kind of thing, so we're hoping those come through. We want to address the causes of extended stays, mandatory minimums, sentences served in sequence, a serious review and classification of crimes, and what the possession amounts are for felonies versus misdemeanors, and of course issues of gun possession. We also want to look at opportunities for geriatric compassionate release, which is coming up. Okay, the fiscal note, according to the bill, also said like 12 million. Doesn't seem like anything, really, does it?
I was going to say,
But just remember,
what a deal.
but just remember, $11,551 per year will be saved for each prisoner brought out. So let's take a look at it. I don't know, that's what I'm saying.
And Senator Lathrop's really been a lead on that one. He's such a
Absolutely.
such a wonderful
He's
head for
worked
that.
very hard on it, for sure. Numerous bills are out there, in addition, that are contributing to smart justice, but we're waiting to see how they finish. We're likely to find them in new legislation again next year, and certainly 920, if it doesn't go, will need, a breakup and probably more study over the summer and so on. But we really urge people to call the senators on judiciary and say, get that bill going, do something with it. So housing is a big baby, has been a big baby of mine, and it's in the basic needs category for people. One is, it's kind of got two tracks going on, tenant protections and affordable housing. So tenant protections have been going on for a couple of years again too, forced entry, protection from forced entry. Victims of domestic violence can get out of their leases.
What an important bill, yeah. Hope to see that move.
They're looking at a clean slate thing. If you've got evictions, that would be sealed if you had no judgments against you. What else have we got? Oh, God, there's also bed bug detection.
What?
I don't
Like across the board.
No, kidding, seriously.
When you
Isn't
talk
that cool?
about policy being everything, my goodness.
Yeah, they're thinking of everything.
They really are.
And also landlord retaliation if you do complain. Some of these did pass last year and got rolled into 320, but there are a lot more of them floating around. There's some rental mortgage assistance through federal CARES funding. Our governor said we had enough of that. We don't. We have a slow process for getting the applications done. They're also worried about fraud, apparently. So in the states that say that the identifier can come up and just say self-attest to their need, those are clicking along. If we give up that money, it goes back to the federal government. I don't get that.
I'd like to keep that money.
Affordable housing, Senator Droney has a very nice micro-TIF bill that will help for small inner-city lots in rural areas to be developed. 1069, Senator Williams has a Rural Workforce Housing Inventory Act, which promotes housing in counties of less than 100,000. Cool. Community development is going on. ARPA bills for North and South Omaha, $450,000 proposed for North Omaha, million, sorry.
That's a bit of a difference.
Wrong. 50 million for South Omaha, all going good. And last but not least, minimum wage. Okay, so.
Nope.
I
You don't
can't-
have time to explain.
I don't.
We'll do a follow-up on minimum wage. I gotta talk about government.
Oh, God. Oh, yes, okay. See, I told you I had a lot.
Call Carol, she'll tell you all about minimum wage.
All about it.
Well, we're gonna run through this last section here. I'm so sorry to cut you off. Government, there's a lot of issues that we're looking at here. You've probably heard of some of the voter suppression issues that are coming up in our legislation. Senator Groney has a voter ID bill that would require you to include a photocopy of your ID or a bank statement. I don't know the last time I got a bank statement in the mail. And it also has some restrictions on time. Senator Groney has also brought a bill that is reducing the amount of time that people can vote early. So from 35 days, either 22 by mail or 20 days in person, which is significant. And then some of the things we're excited about are the independent commission. So Senator Hunt has brought a bill that would create an independent redistricting commission, which is like, oh my goodness, we would love to see that.
Wow.
So that's a fantastic one. And then finally, one that we're really keeping an eye on is Senator Slama has introduced a constitutional amendment resolution that would eliminate the requirements to nominate and elect in a nonpartisan way, which is would remove some of that really thing that we're very proud of in Nebraska being nonpartisan, and it would actually require that you put the R's and the D's and the I's on your actual ballot. So we're really hoping that one doesn't pass. We love our nonpartisan legislature. So we have got a lot going on there. These are some pretty big issues. I'm sure you're sitting there as a citizen saying, is it worth it to get involved? Absolutely. And there are a couple different ways. Probably the most effective is to get in touch with your senator. They really resonate with their own constituents. Email, call, write them. There's also ways online that you can submit your comments, and we have a lot of resources on our website that I would hop over there and take a look at. So much more we could talk about, and we encourage you to check out our website, which is lwvnebraska.org. We could talk for days, but we're going to have to leave it there. So that's all for us today. We thank you for taking the time to join us, and we thank you from the League of Women Voters Action Teams. We want to particularly thank our members and our directors, Megan Lyons and Janelle Stevenson, Dr. Phyllis Salyards, Ame Folker, Palestine Gray Moore, Jill McDermott, Joanna Lindberg. Those are our different directors. So for the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha, I'm Rachel Gibson, and Carol Dennison is here with me, and we remind you that you inform yourself about the issues and the candidates, and at election time, you'll be ready to go vote Omaha.
Yay.